I never really felt like I was part of the groups. I always felt like I needed to kind of express myself more, so I would be acknowledged in a way with kids. So I used to lock myself up in my grandmother's room and started to write stories and started to write my own fantasies. And that's how I kind of created writing poetry.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So now if you'd like to look in my direction, we'll start.
Okay.
Can you tell me what is your name, your occupation, and your nationality?
My name is Sangila Fabri. I go by Avanaisa EmeliJo. I'm a poet, storyteller. I'm a singer-songwriter. I have done theater, and I am a photographer. I also study social studies. Yeah.
How would you describe yourself culturally, ethnically, racially? How would you describe yourself?
I forgot to answer where
Ah,
I'm from. I am from Suriname, a country in South America. Not a lot of people know about it. But how would I describe myself? Socially was the question? Socially?
culturally, racially, and socially.
Um, wow. Culturally, I love to create. When I create my poetry, for example, I love to create everything that I have brought with me from my ancestors, and I've been brought up by my grandparents. So it's a mixture of an old style and something that's much more modern. So culturally, African, very much African, very much the Surinamese culture. Socially, I would say, um, well, I like to find a mixture in between different African cultures. That's what I find very interesting. I like to communicate with various African people of African diasporas, people of very different African countries, and love to hear their experiences as well as the Caribbean experience, and the cultural, social, and
Now, racial.
racial. Uh, Racial, yes, black. Everything black. Yes.
I, I'd love to hear that all together.
Yeah.
So I said cultural, racial, and social. So I'll
Mm-hmm.
give you the question. How would you describe yourself culturally, socially, and racially?
Um, I would describe myself as a mixture of Caribbean, African, and a good, a good dynamic of my, yeah, my African heritage, and it is black, fully black, and everything black. Yes.
You talked about your work.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me how or your identity is reflected in your work and why?
Um, I love to, well, it's kind of started with when I moved to the Netherlands. I have been thinking about what do I want to do with my hair, because I found that, or I saw that it was very difficult to maintain my hair because it's different kind of weather in the Netherlands. And a friend of mine came up with the idea, do you want to put in locks? And I said, well, yeah, I'll try that. And at first it was really difficult, but then when I started that process, kind of it became very spiritual for me. So I don't wear my hair out often, and it's that spiritual connection to myself, my roots, and that's why I started wearing turbans, just to tie my hair in a turban. And most of the time it is African printed. It is prints from very much fabric that I've gotten from my grandmother. And when I perform, I always tie my head. And I started with calling the names of my ancestors, my grandparents, and those who have raised me, and why I created my own name. So that's the starting point when I start writing something and when I perform, and that's how I want to express it in poetry. Yeah.
I'm asking quite a few people that I'm interviewing about when they first felt different.
Yeah, actually, it started when I was a little girl. I never really felt like I was part of the groups. I always felt like I needed to kind of express myself more so I would be acknowledged in a way with kids. So I used to lock myself up in my grandmother's room and started to write stories and started to write my own fantasies. And that's how I kind of created writing poetry, because that's how I knew how to tell what I was feeling or what I was thinking. And I felt really different. I felt like my body is here, but my spirit is from another dimension. So it started when I was really, yeah, small. And when I came here, it's a complete cultural shock. It was a complete cultural shock. And it was much more visible to, kind of see when you're in certain spaces that you're different. You have a different skin color, a different culture. You speak differently. You think differently. And I find that mostly within my culture, you're much more, when you're in a room, you're much more quiet and you observe. And in the Netherlands, in the West, is much more, you have to have a certain pace and you have to talk and you have to speak up. So
You have to claim your space.
yes, yeah. So that's how I saw and I experienced the difference. Yeah.
Was there any one particular moment where you realized, okay, I'm being identified as either a person of color or a black person? Or was there a certain moment in your life where you thought, oh, wow, I'm being identified by a color, not just by me as a person? Could you tell me about it?
That is when I went to school here. When I started going to school, I think it's high school here. That switch of coming from Suriname and kind of the school system didn't see the, how do you say niveau? Niveau in Dutch.
Levels?
The levels. They don't see the levels of schooling systems. They don't see it as high enough in Suriname, for example, as they do here. So when I came here, I had this conversation with he was a dean in school, and he said, I think maybe this is too difficult for you, and maybe you might have to, do something else with beroepsopleiding.
Yeah. How can you translate that?
When you're directly gonna choose for
What stream you're going to go? If you're
Yeah.
going to go vocational, or you're going to go to university,
Vocational.
or your stream? Oh, vocational.
So it kind of, I had to choose either, maybe you might do something in, for example, a lot of, I know a lot of people in my family choose to be in working as a nurse, for example. So
Right.
you're a black woman, you choose to go work as a nurse. So that was mostly the advice that I got. Not like maybe it would help if you would kind of try to see where you can find your place in this schooling system. It was more of, I think it would work for you better if you just choose that, because I think it's just it's too high for you. So that's the first situation where I thought, like, okay, so I'm not really being seen. I'm mostly being heard as, or seen as, someone who is not capable of having a certain level to excel.
And in terms of your poetry, what are the main themes you feel connect directly to your identity or the search for a place in the Netherlands?
Well, when I started to perform, because I started going to poetry events just to see how do people perform. And when I started to perform, I was mainly focused on what the audience wanted. So I was mainly focused on the audience. Most of the audience that come to certain events, it was mostly white audience. So I was focused on how can I write a piece that they understand and that connects what they can connect with. And I was thinking about, but if I am starting with my ancestors and I'm starting with how I create my name and where I'm from, how can I not start with, how can I not write a piece that is has to do with my cultural background or what I experience as a Black person, a Black woman, a female. So most of the time it is when I introduce myself, I start with where I'm from.
Please like and subscribe. Share to choose from.